Hello, and welcome back to the channel. This is SCC, and tonight we're looking at some trade plans for round 13. Not the easiest round to trade in, with only one buy going past, and also one that you could maybe hold on due to the fact that there's only two teams missing this week, and just wait and reassess next week. For me, though, I'm a bit worried about, the guys I've got losing money because what we're going to find is cash is going to be king, and I really want to try and get as much of that as possible. Now, you probably could say I should have cashed these guys in last week, but I had to take a gamble and I just picked the wrong ones. I thought Wilson would be able to keep up his, scores of 80s and maybe lose a little bit of cash. Wasn't to be. Was a bit worried about Darcy, who ended up scoring better. And then Closey was just didn't really seem like he was fully tapped out. I think his break even last week was like 49. Obviously got 47, which isn't great, but you have to take a stab. Got him wrong. We move on. So this week, those two guys definitely look like they have to go. The hard part is thinking about who you're going to trade in, how you're going to do it, because we've got, buys coming up that I don't want to over pick for. And that's the real hard part of all of this. So we want to keep moving forward, though, because we want to get closer to finishing the team. And the hard part is I'm just have no idea how to finish this forward line, quite frankly. I've been looking at different players, different things, seeing what I can do, and it's seeming to be really hard. So I thought we could run through a few of the trade plans I'm going through and what I've kind of settled on, I'm thinking. But I want to see the teams tomorrow and see how things line up, because, there's a lot to play out with rookies and stuff, and it's a little bit too hard to set the trade, especially if rookies don't get picked or if other things happen. Like we've already seen the Crows this tonight drop Rob, who isn't the Supercoach popular, but there could be a lot of changes that happen in teams. We got Dowling come in, who apparently was a very good junior, got a lot of the ball, has been ripping it up in the sandful. So it's hard to look past him when it comes to, so he'll play 2 and then have his bye. So that looks like an all right downgrade at some point. But hopefully by that time, it's going to be the finishing touch to the team rather than an actual player needed for cash. But the problem is I just don't have the players kind of maturing from a cash perspective at the right time. McCall is still probably 1 or 2 weeks off and potentially could be the sub tomorrow, which would be annoying. Also, hopefully it looks like Moyle's going to get another game. Looks like Witts might miss, so that's good. Get some cash there. But otherwise, there's not much else here. Garcia, if he gets a game, maybe. I don't know. We might have a look at his VFL stats and see if he played last week, because I didn't think he played the other week because he was held as emergency for St Kilda. And who knows if Rogers gets a game? They've gone with Graham, but Graham didn't have a particularly good game last week, so maybe he'll get back in. Gold Coast did win though, so kind of hard to want to swap a team when that happens, but you never know what could happen, because I didn't think that guys like Sexton would get back in, and here we are. So, in saying all that, we know who we want to trade. It's Closey and Wilson. All right, and we've got a lot of money in the bank, so that gives us 1.1 million. So we can realistically shop for. We could just go 2 premiums, but the problem is I'm finding is, coming off the bye, there isn't much or many great players that I don't already have. So I've got looking at the guys coming off it, we've got Heaney, Zorko, Tom Green. So that maybe that Tom Green trade wouldn't have been that bad because we would have had someone to go to this week. We in the end held out and went Meek instead, which from a maybe buy positioning perspective wasn't the best move now, because we could have moved back into Green this week pretty easily. And now leaves us a bit of a standstill, because the only players that are worth that are over 600k being Warner, who's had to kick quite a few goals to get to the scores he has the past few weeks, whether that's just a maturing part of his game where he's starting to get around the ball and get some more goals, and Sydney are more of a dominant team, so he's getting more opportunity at that. We won't know, but it's pretty hard to pick him when he's only average hundreds. But I guess this could be the breakout time. We've got Dunkley. So Dunkley is probably the one that I'm most liking off this buy. If you have a look at his scores, they're very nice. So I'll just drop them quickly so we can have a look at that. He's actually been very consistent, not anything amazing, but his low has been 89, and that was against the Crows, which is probably like a little bit surprising, to be honest. That was in the draw as well, so that was actually quite a close game. Probably just in the crunch time he didn't quite get the ball, but outside of that, like, very nice scoring. The only problem I see with picking Dunkley at this point is I don't know how my cash works out after that by going him, but he's probably the one that's highest on my radar coming out of this buy. The other one I don't mind is Gordon. I thought he was going to be more of a potty pick than what he is, but he's only actually owned by 20% of the team. So it's pretty hard to go that, and knowing that, he really hasn't set the world on fire, and he's kind of playing to the same average as last year. The bonus for him is obviously he plays for Sydney, and they're pretty dominant, so you'd think he'd be on the end of it a bit. And he has a very high time on ground. The problem is like, you look at these scores, and yeah, there's the 149 against Essendon, but the rest of it's been like very up and down. A lot of 90s, some 70s, and it's like hard to go for that when you've got players like Rao who are 20k more expensive, Steele who's only 20k more expensive or something like that. Guys like that who are been doing a bit more this year. Davies Uniacke has actually been playing really well as of recent, but I just always get worried. He just seems like he's a player who can drop these 67s pretty regularly. Kind of like in that Noah Anderson mold, where it's like he'll go massive one week and then drop off the next. But the last two games are pretty encouraging, considering he went 152 against Essendon and 117 against Port, who you'd suggest are some of the harder matchups this year. And even against the Gold Coast, he had a pretty good outing as well. The run home doesn't look too bad, and being West Coast this week, but there's that Optus, which has been actually quite a hard stadium for teams to score well at. Then he's got Collingwood, who, midfielders generally do well against. Same with Melbourne. Dogs would be another hard one. Back to Gold Coast, who you'd assume would be hard. And then Sydney, Carlton, Geelong even wouldn't be the greatest either. But then he finishes with a nice run of Richmond, West Coast, Bulldogs, and Hawthorn again. I mean, Bulldogs could be hard depending on how many mids they've actually got in their team at the time. But I don't know. It's just one of those ones I'm not 100% set on, but you can't look past what he's been able to do previously. Going down from there, there's not much else unless I go to like a Fisher or a Power on the forward line. But the player I'm really set on in the forward line is Dylan Moore, which puts me in a rough position because he has the round 15 bye, which is not great. I have a lot of players there, but it just seems like Hawthorn have started to turn a corner with their scoring. His price is quite nice. He's got the low break even, so even if he has a bad game, he's probably going to go up a bit of money. Last time he played GWS, he scored decently, so he got a 90. Then he's got Richmond and West Coast, which seems like pretty good matchups, although West Coast is also out up to stadium. And the last five for them actually seem quite good because he gets Richmond and North again. And it's starting to become the time where we have to make decisions on forward line players, and this seems like the time to really jump on Dylan Moore. Now, that's well and good, but the next issue we have is, what do we do if Moyle doesn't get a game? Because if Moyle doesn't get a game, it then becomes probably a requirement to get a rup, because I don't really see what other time I can get one, because after that, Gordon and Moyle will both have a bye next week, and then the only other player you get is English, who then would have a bye after that anyway. And so would Marshall. So then it seems like I would be stuck where I might not have the cash to get a ruck, and I might be playing like a second ruck in Moyle who might not even get a game. Now, there is potential where I could just wait and go Jackson next week. But I haven't been loving Jackson's play. It would be definitely feel like I just want to delay getting Jackson to the end and then go him as like the last forward upgrade. But, if the hand's force, the hand's force. Because the only player that you'd want to get as a ruck coming off this, I mean, you could go Jerry, but I don't actually know how well he's been playing. Has there been a drop a little bit in form? I'm not sure. A lot of people aren't really onto him. So if we have a look at it, what do we got? We've got Grundy, Jerry, Briggs, who's just nowhere near the form he had last year, which is brilliant. I don't know what's really changed other than maybe the way that the ruck rules are. So really all you got is Grundy. And Grundy's got a massive break even, but he is coming up against Geelong, who typically aren't the best in the ruck, as you can see with a 16 rank. And seemingly looks to be pretty good. And the thing with Grundy as well is like, obviously he hasn't been like the Grundy of Collingwood for a while, but he's still playing very well. And if we look at and starting to get back a bit of form, and he's in a good team, which is always good for a ruck. Now, if we look at, this in the scheme of things, he's only 3 points behind English as well. A little bit more expensive at the moment, but, the fact that he's played his bye and we can now get him is pretty good and a bit of an opportunity I feel like I want. So, like, if I go Grundy and Moyle does play, though, the problem is that, like, this is just a wasted player. I can't get him on field. And he has the same bye as Gawn, so it's not helpful there either. So I feel like it's either this week or next week I'm going to have to get up to Grundy anyway. And I probably like to wait and see if he does put in a low score and see if we can get a little bit more cheap, like a little bit more cheaper Grundy. But as I say that, we've talked about Geelong, and a 130 is probably not out of the realm. So this is where I guess it gets a little bit hard as to thinking what I can do. So Dunkley feels that same need, obviously. So we could go Dunkley, and then that gives us our around 12 midfielder, and then we have more here. But the cash then becomes an issue. And I'm really tempted to trade Zach Reid and get like someone for him because he's pretty much dead now. Like there's no chance of him coming back, at least with Rogers and Garcia. They're still playing, so there is a chance. And we might jump into their stats in a second. Now, there's another two options I've been looking at. One is definitely the competition guy that everyone would be probably more in agreement to picking. The only thing I'm worried about is with players coming back, how that affects him. Maybe there's three really, because there's probably one more that you could go as well. So but the first one we're going to talk about has the better buy. So that is instead of getting Dunkley, we move Revel to midfield. And instead of getting Revel, we get Zach Fisher, which leaves us with more cash. So if we need to make a move to Grundy next week, we don't have to give up as much to do it. So whether that means like we have 188k plus the 266 plus we trade like a Rogers or someone like that to make this happen, we could. So I think Rogers plus him's 460 plus the 180, I think brings us, I think Moore should be about 300. I think I calculated if he gets an 80, I think. Yeah, so if he gets an 80, he goes up 48k. So if he gets like a 60 or 70, he's probably going to be about 300,000. And plus Rogers makes that 500k plus the 188 makes it 688k, which leaves us with about 20 or so K potentially that we could use to get to a Grundy and a rookie. Now that's us assuming that all things go right there. But that's potentially what I'm looking at for that. So we get Fisher in, which is the forward, which leaves us with only one forward upgrade. We're gonna get hopefully Grundy the week after, and then it's just figuring out how we get to our last forward upgrade once guys like McAuliffe, maybe Revel, maybe even Garcia, because I think I could use Garcia instead of Rogers to get a little bit more cash to make it happen, or using McAuliffe and stuff like that to make this last forward work. Because we've obviously held Rankin. We got Richards as well, who's potentially going to come back. So there's a few options left. And I think if I trade Reed to Dawson, if he gets game with Dawson, it does give me a little bit more cash just in case we are a bit closer than we'd like to be to get Moyle to Grundy next week. But this all assumes that Moyle gets a game. So obviously if Moyle doesn't get a game, we're probably going to scrap Fisher, just go straight to Grundy and then work it out from there. I just think that Moore's like run coming up, Hawthorn's form at the moment is too hard to resist. Plus it's a Tasmania game against GWS, which I feel like is going to be decent for him to score from. Now, another player that's kind of so that's the first one that I was kind of talking about. Now, another one that a lot of teams have, and sadly I traded out, so I wouldn't be in this position, is Sexton. The problem I have with Sexton is Will Powers should be back this week, and how does that affect his role? Who's it going to affect? Is it going to affect him or Flanders? Now, Flanders was already playing the defensive position while Powers in the team, and I just wonder whether, you know, it's going to be worth pushing him out of that position. Sexton, well, he wasn't in the team. This has been a godsend for a lot of people who held Sexton because you've very much been given like 200K thanks to Will Power. So you should be thanking him pretty heavily because I don't think it would have been hard to see Sexton get a game. And if he did get one, they gave him a good scoring role. But hey, sometimes you get lucky in Supercoach because he wasn't even getting named emergency, but these things happen and sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you get unlucky. But yeah, I'm just not sure. And it's the same thing with Fisher as well, the fact that McKerch is out. I guess like the money play says go Sexton, but Fisher's role, like even if McKerch come back, seems a little bit more solid because then it's McKerch and Fisher sharing the role, whereas it would be Sexton, Flanders, and Power kind of sharing a backline distributing role if they even all get picked together. So, and the thing with Fisher is like, there's no way they're going to play him forward. So realistically, if he's playing, he's probably playing there. I don't know with Sexton whether they wouldn't like try and put him onto a wing or something and maybe make him work there. But yeah, I think the security is a little bit safer with Fisher. Now this is like the real rare pick, the one that no one would want to do. But if you got on this 2 weeks ago, 2 to 3 weeks ago, you'd be pretty happy with how it's turned out. And that's Nick Hind. So Nick Hind, what I like about this player is the fact that he's got the defensive forward designation, which at least makes him kind of a player you can help to move around your team when we do get to like an M9, F8, F7, D7 position. And also ever since, he's pretty much playing for his career at this point, and ever since he has been given more of a prominent role, like he's got a quite good 4-round average. Even the 3 rounds actually quite good, 94 as a forward, and he's, if he was cheaper, it would be much more worth it. So like if you'd picked him at the low, which was about 220K, and at the time I think I did look at him, but I went, oh, he's not even getting full game. How can you really trust it? And that's probably the problem with this pick is the fact that Nick Hind doesn't really get a full game, but not a full game. He's probably got the least security, but if you got him here, you'd be very happy because you made 160K on a guy who doesn't look like slowing down. And like I was looking at his heat maps and stuff like that, and it looks like the role, he's not playing this half forward flank as much, even though he played it. This is supposedly starting at half forward flank and all of his touches the defense. So it's like he's obviously covering a role out there. Now, Another issue I find with this is the fact that if I were to pick, did I pick? Did I pick the right? Yeah, I did press the right here, man. Is that I've got Nick Martin, and this kind of goes like this is me betting against Nick Martin getting back into the back line, and if I already got him, so it's like, oh, do I really want to bet against this? But at the same time, we've seen Martin be able to score well from there, and is it all right to just hedge your bets and go for both? If the security was a bit better, if you could tell me that Hine was going to get, he was going to get solid game time and we knew that was going to happen, I'd probably do it. But it's pretty hard to pick when you probably got Sexton in the same position. And probably with a little bit more security, you'd suggest just based on how good he's playing. Whereas, like, I'm not sure with Essendon. I mean, the thing is, both these teams are in pretty similar positions as far as like where they are on the ladder. Oh, actually, sorry, Essendon's way higher, but Gold Coast beat them last week, which just makes me think they're closer anyway. But, probably in the direction they're going is probably the same, I would say. Like, I would have thought if you told me Essendon and Gold Coast were going to be in the same position mid-season, I would have said, yeah, that seems totally, like, plausible. If you said to me Essendon would be top 4, I would have been pretty surprised. So, yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm trying to think of something different, trying to think of, what's some other players that we can make this work with. Hine has a bit of an earlier bye, which kind of helps out as well. So these guys aren't on that, last bye. Because at the moment, if I look at this, so if we go more and let's say, yeah, we keep the Fisher. So round 13, obviously, we're fine. We're going to have at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, potentially like 19, 20 players if McKercher can get up. And I could also trade Reed to Dawson and get a 19th. So, yeah, we've got, a bit of room to move from here. Then round 14, we've got 6 in the back line. We've got 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You'd hope McKercher's back 13. If we can get Moyle up to Grundy, that would be 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And then potentially Rankin would be playing next week, so that could be 20. I'm kind of hoping they hold him out till after the bye, just because I don't want him to re-injure. But it would be nice for him to get in before the bye next week so that he could just pump some cash in and make himself even harder to get for people. Because I think that cash is going to be a real problem. Like, cash is going to be king. And, yeah, we really need to be thinking about what will our cash look like at the end of the buys if we make trades on all these players. Now, maybe it will take a 3 trade to get that last upgrade. But I'm hoping to have 4 to 5 trades at the end of this with a full team. And then we can maybe look at maybe getting another upgrade, whether that's because potentially I think like I wouldn't have a cash problem if I was just happy to trade McKercher out. And maybe that's what I do if the role's just kind of getting swallowed up by Fisher a little bit and I just get a good premium. Because like I'm leaving Butters on the table at the moment and yeah, leaving a few other players on the table that I probably should have in the team because I've got so many defenders. So like at the moment, if we look at this, I'm probably going to be pushing Dacos to the midfield to get these guys all on. And then it's like one more midfielder. Whether that means I kind of upgrade maybe Martin to a better midfielder at some point if he continues to have a downward trend is something we can think about. But yeah, it's really thinking about how we're going to position the team to 1, maximize points through the rest of these buys, and 2, score well. I feel like buys are something is probably one of the things I want to try and improve on in the coming years as a strategy, because I feel like as I've done this year's top loaded on these guys in the earlier buys, and then I don't really have anyone to trade into, which kind of makes it hard. And I didn't have the best, round score last week due to, just the wrong rookies playing. But I also think injuries haven't really helped this. So, yeah, really I'm thinking if I'm going to get more, it's got to be Fisher. And if I want to get more, it has to be this week. And then it's like, now the only way this changes is I could make Fisher Grundy, and then I'm probably a bit more comfortable just sticking with more and letting the money play out the way it will. But yeah, there's still quite a bit to figure out here as we come to the end of the buys. So talking about VCC, so Dawson's been confirmed to play, but he's being played he was named in a forward pocket. Not sure how good that is for him. But like the midfield has Schallenberg named in there. And I just don't see them playing Schallenberg a full game in the midfield. Interestingly, another thing that's come up in the media is that Rochelli's been asking for more time in the midfield. And I could see potentially that the spot that's lost by Crouch does get shared kind of equally between Rankin and Rochelli at some point, because they both probably provide the same sort of zip from as a player that would be needed in the midfield a bit there. So I could see that happening. I feel like it does solidify Rory Laird's position a bit with Crouch being out for the season. But I don't know whether with the Crows, if they continue to lose and they don't look like making finals, which at the moment they don't look like making, it would be really unlikely. Whether they start to push some more young guys into that midfield, giving guys like Dowling and stuff like that a bit more run. And, I think we may be seeing the end of guys like Tex Walker as well, as the Crows try to move on to this new crop of players and developing things to come, because we have relied on guys like Tex for a little bit too long, and it's time for guys like Fogarty and the like in that forward line to really stand up and make it their own. So we've got some interesting things to play out, but maybe keep an eye on Rochelli. He could be... I'd suggest he'd be pretty cheap because he hasn't been playing amazing. So 321k. But if we do see a change in the next couple of weeks to his role, potentially off his buy could be a pretty good pickup, because I'd suggest, his break even's 81. So even if he goes 100, he's going up 20k, 30k. And if he gets another game after that, then he'll get one more game in after that. And then on the buy, he could be maybe if we see a good role, still continue. And even if Rankin gets in next week and they does have that good role, we can potentially see him as an option. So in saying all this, as far as things go, like if Dawson doesn't get picked for North, other rookies that look interesting or worth maybe a shot. Let's swap this to cash cows. So we got Leek Lear. So if he gets a game, I would be interested. I did have a look at Leek though, and his disposal numbers aren't great. Like outside of that one game, he had 100. He hasn't really been going that much over 60s. And the 100 was off some late marks in a tight game. Edwards, the most confusing scoring I think I've seen, and the way it's scored. So he's got a 70 and like an 80 to his name. And he's got North, Essendon and Hawthorn coming up, which isn't too bad either. But if you look at his fantasy stats, he's had 9 disposals for an 83 and 6 disposals for a 71. I guess there's 5 tackles here, but that seems like some outrageous scaling, considering that. I guess Logan Morris is there, but he's a bit more expensive. Some people are going McNeil. I'd just be a little bit worried is his security with Richards coming back probably next week. Now that's been confirmed, he's missing another week with concussion, and Libba coming back into the team. Like, will he be able to keep that? I think McMullen is all right, but I don't know what his long-term security is like. So you will have to see there. It looks like Johnston is 6, so that might give Rogers a go. Did he miss last week? He did by the looks, or did he not play? Did he play last week? No, he did not play. So Johnson's not stopping him getting in anyway, but who else is there? Toby Pink, so I feel like that's one you don't really want to look at. Bigger has been getting game. And then going down here, like we've got Hardiman's looking like making cash, but not really worth it. Jack Clark's 200k still. Jack Bytel could be interesting next week. Although, did Collingwood have the bye next week? Oh, wait, he could be interesting this week. Right, because he's played 2, but he just hasn't been spectacular. But they do have Melbourne, North, Gold Coast. So maybe we could have a look and see how the injury, what's his break even looking like? 6. I mean, Bytel was good when he played for St Kilda. Like, he had some good scores, so I feel like he could get it back, but he just hasn't really shown much recently. Yeah, and otherwise it's pretty slim pickings going from there. So, yeah, I don't know. I'd probably go number 1 on Will Dawson just because the defensive forward. So even if he stops playing, he could be like a potential looping option for like a D7 or F7 in the future. Especially because we've got a few defensive forwards that we might be able to move around with there. The other one, actually, I don't mind Baker. I was looking at Baker. I forgot all about him. So I like Baker because he's being named in the midfield. And he's been named in the midfield again. And he's really cheap. So I actually would rather go Baker here. The only problem is Baker has a bye coming up, which I think's round 14. No, he's got the round 15 bye as well. Yeah, I can't go Baker. So I have to choose between Baker and Moore. Baker's got such a good role, though. I feel like the role is probably going to win me over, but he hasn't really been scoring from it's the problem. What's his break even? 79, so I could wait a week. Then I'd have to wait 2 weeks, and then he's got Hawthorn. Richmond's run is pretty tasty from round 20 as well. Collingwood, North, St Kilda, Hawthorn, Gold Coast don't seem too bad. Oh, decisions. What? Can I make this work into round? We're picking these 2 now. 1, 2. So this would become someone else. Grundy, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, which would mean, but I could start like adjusting this team next week to make it work. Like Fraser, Garcia, McAuliffe could all start going out. Even Richards if I was forced. Even Reed. If I make the Reed trade this week to Dawson, that would add an extra player, wouldn't it? I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, assuming Dawson gets game. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's say it's 6. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And then, was that including McKercher? 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So that's 15, not including McKercher. But this does leave me 240k, which I like, and he's cheaper than Fisher. In a better, probably what you would suggest is a better and more secure role. I'm probably going to go, I'm thinking I'm going to go Baker. Use the 240. That would definitely allow me to get more up next week to probably Grundy. Because I'll be able to go 1 up, 1 down from and I can make it be, I could probably just go Rogers here and just get a player who's actually playing. So if we go, let's map this out. So we got 240. You can't see this. Anyway, 240 plus 203,600 plus, let's say 280,000 at the worst. We give us 723. Take 102, well, 123,900, 599, 700. I reckon this is what I'm going to stick with, and I might see how Baker goes, because if he goes badly, I might just screw the Moore idea and try and get a good midfielder in. But I do like the potential. Because I think Baker's got that CBA role. He's been named in the middle again tomorrow. And and the Crows are a decent matchup for midfielders as well. So no Dusty as well. So, I mean, not that that matters, but it's a little bit more like there won't be someone swapping into the midfield. Although Taranto and Prestia are back. But does that help Baker? Because Baker might have been getting a lot of pressure on him. I don't know. There's a lot of chat here, but I do like Baker at this price. A little bit cheaper than what you could have got him at the start of the season, I think. Yeah, 12k cheaper. I'm gonna have to think about this, but I'm thinking this is either going to be Baker or Fisher. That's what I'll probably say. Fisher probably should go just because of the buy and puts a little bit less pressure on. But I feel like McAuliffe and Fraser are going to be going by that time, and it'd probably like to Merritt and someone. And if we make the retrade as well, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let's say McKirch plays 13, 14, 15, 16. That's 17. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Oh, that's 17. And that was with Moyle being obviously Grundy. That would be 17. So I'd only actually have to make one trade. So maybe this could work. There is a lot of players there that this could work through. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm going to stick with Baker. I feel like I like that role a little bit better. Plus, probably playing for a contract as well. I mean, Fisher's probably playing for a contract. But anyway, that's a lot of rambling. But you can see there's a few options out there for what you want to do. They're players I like. Now, let's talk about quickly, because let's just not make this about my team. Let's have a look at some guys. And this is probably what you've been waiting for. Some guys who look like they're decent pickups if you really need someone. So we went through the round 12. I think you could trade in, if you didn't have issues, you could trade into round 13 players. I think you could wait on Butters because that break even is large. And I don't think Port's run home is necessarily amazing. I mean, he does have that Richmond game, but a lot of these are very losable. Think if you want Young, you could go Young, but like these guys are now losing. You know, after this, won't have the benefit of the buy. If you want to get Sarong, probably the time to do it will be after his next game, but we got to start moving up towards them as well. And otherwise, Horn Francis isn't too bad. He could break out in the back end of the season, so keep that in the back of your head as well. And then Connor Rosie, actually, who we didn't look at there, and that's someone potentially I could look at picking up. Where is he? He is so far down, isn't he? Why is it only showing? Oh, it's because it's mid. The 466k, 178 break even, so probably wait a week or two on that. But he could also be someone who's going to be very, very cheap once he's back from the injury. Defenders, let's look at them quickly. So Ryan, probably just wait on because he's just so expensive. I don't know if you could, like, 666 is a lot to pay. I think Houston, this would be a good time to get on him. Clark's got a really low break even, or a decently low break even. So if you want him, I think go for that as well. Blakey is an interesting one. Kind of gone under the radar, but scoring pretty well. Could break out come the end of the season. So one to think about as well. Outside of that, not really much here. The rest you've kind of got to wait and see how their buys go. And we've already kind of talked about the forwards a lot in this video. I think the only really one you want here is Jackson or maybe Fisher. I think Power, they play him in the midfield some weeks and they put him forward. So I just don't really know what to do there. And I think I'd probably just rather pay an extra 90k for Fisher, to be honest. So that's probably all I have to say on this tonight. I'd like to VC Dawson, but it's going to be hard. So I'm thinking I'll probably look at maybe just VCing Bont, who's in unreal form. Got another Melville Stadium game, which seems to always be good for him. And we'll probably look to just captain into Dacos. I think VCing anything into Dacos is probably the way you want to go this week. I think Queen's birthday, he loves a big stage. He'll probably go massive because Melbourne's midfield hasn't been in its greatest form. But they might be looking to get a little bit of vengeance after last week's drumming. So outside of that, maybe one of the Sydney boys. But other than that, I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you've got to the end, leave a comment on what you're thinking you're going to do this week. Hit subscribe if you want to follow along for the rest of the videos going forward, because it's going to be interesting to see how this week in the buys goes. Hopefully your team's a little bit better set up than mine is, and you got a few more players that you can trade into, because for me it's seeming a little bit harder than I thought it might be. I thought I was actually set up quite well going to the buys, but I always seem to bloody bugger it up or have some injuries like Rank. I think the Rankin injury and the McKerchie injuries have been pretty bad ones. Because you have them on. Like last week I had an extra player and one of those bad scores drops out, and I probably get an extra 40-50 points, which puts this up to a bit of a better score. And then like McKerchie plays probably the same thing, so can't really work around those things. It's a little bit of bad luck, but it kind of talks to maybe how I have to change up strategy going forward in future years and just trade these players out and make sure that we have enough going to the buys. But anyway, that's enough from me. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.